Hello everyone, and in today's video we are going to talk about how I went from this technique to this technique on the rowing machine, and of course, as always, how you guys can make the similar changes that I made. So I'll break down what I was doing wrong, why it was wrong, and then what I did to make the changes, and then what I started doing well and why I was doing it well, trying to get down to the fundamentals, keeping it as simple as possible, all so that you can go away and after watching this video know exactly what you can do so that you can row more efficiently, get more speed for the same effort, avoid injury, and just have the stroke feel nicer and feel more connected and feel more smooth and feel better rhythm. So this was me in around 2019, I think. So I was rowing quite well on the machine. At this point, it's probably around a 553, a 554 or so on the rowing machine. And yeah, it was something that became a strength of mine, was my technique, particularly on the machine. I see far too many people leaving, just getting on the erg and not worrying about any technical changes. And the things in the boat that I did really well were developed on the rowing machine. Or, there we go, on the rowing machine. I'm trying to point in the right direction. Anyways, the starting off point though, so 10 or so years before this, well, it wasn't 10 at this point, it was maybe like 6 or 7 or something. This was me, one of my first sessions, so you can still representing the basketball shorts, which there's nothing wrong with, of course. It's just a classic novice rower wanting to avoid wearing tight lycra all the time. I think that's a totally normal thing. But okay, not to brag in any way, but I think for a novice, I already had a decent technique. What I would do, and what you guys are doing well already, is watch videos. So I would go away and just, once I finished rowing, I would go home and then type in rowing into YouTube and just watch people row and try and think about how can I row the same. So that's the first thing, is watch videos, which you guys are already doing, so great work. But go and watch other people erging and watch their technique. Anyways, the first thing I would say is, quite a big lean back, which I wouldn't say necessarily there's anything wrong with that. So I would say, that's fine if you want to lean back that far. However, my problem was my rock over. So I just wasn't that mobile here, and you can see I get to here before I'm pretty restricted. So that was the big first problem. So we'll get to kind of like how you can improve that as well. And then fairly upright. Okay, my feet were probably too high on the machine as well. I was also having the soft sole shoes, which isn't ideal. I'd say if you're using running shoes, you're losing a bit of power. Try and use flat soled shoes. Try and use Vans. They're great. Or you can go barefoot, which is what I did. Or weight shoes. Anyways, this front end position, I would say it's okay. But what would happen is my back would bend, and it was subtle, and it was only really a physio that spotted this, but my back would bend and contract and change as I took the load. But the biggest thing, first problem I had, is just I open, the first thing I do is I'm really uncomfortable in this position here. My body doesn't like it. It's tense. My hamstrings are tight. And my body gets out of that position first. So I just immediately open that back and get into a position where I'm a bit more comfortable here. But again, one of the good things I was doing early on was hanging nice and long with the arms. But yeah, definitely that back opening was the big first problem. So what I'd recommend doing is just try and keep that body angle forward as you drive with the legs. The other thing I wasn't doing is I was taking a lot of load in the quads, and I was firing my quadricep muscles more than my glute muscles. So the easier muscle to use is the quads. The quads are far easier to engage than the glute muscle. If I was to to explain this, the glute muscle works through a far bigger range of motion, And when a muscle works through a bigger range of motion, it's harder to contract that muscle when it's stretched. So when I say stretched, I mean right now the glute muscle connects from here, the top of your hips, all the way through to the base of your femur. And when you're compressed like this muscle is stretched far. The opposite of that is when you're fully extended here, and I mean, even ideally, your back would be flat, your glute muscle is not stretching as far. And what that means is that it's just much easier to engage the muscle when it's not in a stretched range. So if you think about it right now, try this now. Here's a little exercise at home for you guys. I'm going to change the camera. Hopefully I remember to change it back. I always forget to do that. But take your bicep, and you have it stretched like this. So this is when the bicep muscle is stretched. And try and tense that bicep muscle. It's much harder to tense it when it's stretched. And then contract that muscle so you feel the muscle shorten as well. And when it's shortened, it's much easier to tense the muscle. I don't understand neuromuscularly why that is the case, but it just is. When the muscle is shorter, it's easier to contract. So my point here is that when you, oh my God, I nearly did it again. Started talking about the video before even changing the screen back. When you're here, it's super. This is a big, huge problem that I see a lot of rowers making, is they're not able to engage their glute in this part of the stroke. And what that means is your quad. So your quad is responsible for that motion, and then your glute is responsible for that motion. So for a leg drive, what you need is your quads and your glutes to fire at the same time for you to have an effective leg drive. And what often happens is when we're compressed, I did split squats yesterday for the first time in ages, so I'm tense. When you push, if you just fire your quads, what happens is you fire your quads and there's a bit of a bum shove, and you're not effectively transferring that force. I'm out of breath. So, use your glutes, essentially is what I'm trying to say, but we'll get into how you can do that. Apart from that, look, I have to say my technique was pretty good. I'm cocky here, but I think it's true. For a beginner, my technique was pretty decent. The big thing was just opening that back way too early and not engaging the glutes. Hand positioning, okay, that's pretty good going in. Sequencing's really good, I would say. Arms away first. If anything, I would say my sequencing was better with the arms here when I was younger. I remember as well when I was starting rowing, I found it so hard. I would, this is at the start as well, I was on 148s or something like that at that time. Probably my heart rate was 180. Just ripping it. I got a back injury pretty early on. If you're, I know that might not sound that surprising, but when I would slide forward, I would rest my hands on my shins because I felt like that would make it easier for me. But anyways, I fixed that problem. Anyways, to what I was doing well. So the huge improvement was my hip mobility. So how far forward I rocked from this position. Here, okay, I was probably, not leaning back as far. And yes, I'm pulling in very high. I'm pulling into my friggin' throat here. That, who knows? I've not tested it, but it just naturally kind of evolved. On the erg, is it okay? Yeah, it's absolutely fine, I think, to do this, as long as you don't have any shoulder injuries. You get a tiny bit more length on the chain. Personally, I never noticed any problems with my finish when I rode like this. This looks ridiculous when it's paused, doesn't it? But I never noticed any differences in the boat. The problem with this, if we went in the boat, is to try and tap down from there. You could get the blade stuck in the water. But okay, I wouldn't recommend doing this. Maybe I think towards the end of my career, I changed it to where I was pulling into about here. That's maybe a bit high, but anyways. Leaning back position, okay, that's probably a little bit, it's maybe not as far. Yeah, I mean, pretty similar, to be honest. I wasn't like a tall rower. I'm 6'1", pretty short legs. But anyways, what I improved was my ability to rock forward from the hips. So long story short, I mean, at this before I spent a lot of time stretching to get into this position. So that meant if I was not moving, because that was a big part of my back injury, was I wasn't mobile enough. If I was not moving, if I was not walking or whatever, if I was sitting still, I would be stretching. Literally, I'd be making dinner, I'd be stretching, I'd be sat in a lecture at uni, I'd be stretching, I'd be watching a movie before going to bed, I'd be stretching, literally stretching all the time. Stretching does help a little bit, but what helps far more is how you approach your weights training and how you get hip hinging and how you get how you move through a loaded range. So these are things like RDLs, straight leg deadlifts, glute bridges, hip thrusts, hyperextensions. You want to start off with some of these exercises, build into them gradually, make sure that you're moving through them with good range so that you're developing strength, but most importantly, you're developing strength in this compressed position here where you're super compressed and you can use those hip muscles and you can engage those glute muscles when you're here, when that glute muscle is super stretched all the way around. And the best way to do that is in the gym with lots and lots of mobility work, strength work, and building through that and doing it safely. So that would be, that's probably really the biggest difference is that hip mobility and that hip engagement. What that then allowed me to do, one thing I'd maybe criticize myself here is little sort of like lift. I guess I'm kind of emulating that hand lift when I drive here. So that's fine. I guess that's what you want to do in the boat. Maybe a little head lift as well. If we look, that kind of head tilts back a little bit. But overall, the body angle stays forward. What I did well here, and the huge temptation is to open that back early, because on the erg, if you kind of open that back, it can help you get a bit more force on that front if you just jerk that body forward at the catch. So anyways, what I did well is held that body forward, really far forward, all the way through. Okay, I start to open slightly here, but pretty much until my legs are down and straight. My shoulders are in front of my hips, which I think was a big strength of mine. And then leaving that right to the end and pressing through the feet all the way through to the finish. So I would say that would be the big change. And the interesting thing as well is, like, look how bent my back is compared to here. I would say definitely, my back is more straight here than my back is, here. And the reason why I could row with less injuries doing this is I had that hip strength, I had that hip mobility and that hip engagement, and I was loading through the glutes. And when you fire your quads only, you're not taking any load here, and it just directs that force into your back. That's meant to be an arrow. And it causes injuries. So that's why a lot of the time you see some of these international rowers and you're like, what the hell are they doing that back? Ollie Zeidler, man, what are you doing with your back? Come on. He obviously won gold, but, like, come on, man. Like, straighten that thing up. Anyways, those are the main differences. Okay, look, let's go over the whole. That was the biggest change. Let's just go over a little bit here. Speed round of everything I was doing well as a whole. So arms away first. And then I rocked over. I'd think about getting my weight down onto the foot plate here when I rocked over. I'd get here. This is a big one as well. I would get here and I would stay still in my upper body. As soon as you're rocked over and kind of past half slide, no more movement. You want to stay super still, because if you go in and you lunge at the last second, the first thing you're going to do on the way back is lunge out of it. Our body likes habits. The first thing you do on the way out is going to be the last thing you do on the way in. What else is good? Okay, one thing we always recommend, grip. You kind of want that grip to be a bit more in the palms rather than in the fingers. If it's in the fingers, when you go to take the load, the first thing that happens is your body goes, shit, I need to correct that. You're using your forearms, you're engaging your upper body, and you're not transferring that force effectively. imagine like you're going to hang from a chin-up bar. Like, how would you grip the bar? That's what you want to do with your oar handle. Yeah, no, we talked about all this stuff already. Pressing through the whole way as well. So even when you're back, your legs are straight here, you still want to transfer that force through the skeleton into the foot plate and really, really push away with the feet. Don't just drop. Keep your weight on the seat and pull through with the hands and sort of tug it. You want to make sure that that force is being transferred through the foot plate. Like, this is really our only connection point. Like, you cannot imagine you didn't have your feet tied in here and you're through there, through the seat, and you had to like push off of this slidey seat. Like, you're not going to transfer any force. So yeah, there you go. You get to see my favorite emojis. Okay, that's everything. If you found this useful, like and subscribe. If you don't like the unscripted style, you can fuck off, because I'm making these in my free time, which I don't have much of. And yeah, anyways, I had someone commenting on the last post complaining. But anyways, if you got this far, comment lid. And yeah, let me know what you found helpful. I'm playing around with these styles. I'm throwing a lot of stuff out here. So look, if you want more, if you found one style more helpful than another, let me know. Unless it means scripting a video. Like, sorry, I shouldn't ask for advice after just telling someone who commented something to fuck off. But if constructive criticism, okay, I guess that was kind of constructive criticism, but like realistic constructive criticism. I'm not gonna fucking spend all day writing out a perfect video for you. But if it's like, oh, Jack, could you maybe look at this crew, or could you maybe talk about this subject a little bit more in your next video, then that's kind of what I'm after. Because I like making these videos. It's fun. I just don't have that much time to do it, despite me rambling on here at the end of the video. Yeah, and also, if you want help with us coaching you, then head to the link in the bio and watch the video. And then if you're interested, fill in the form and we can see if you'd be a good fit for coaching, if we think we can help you with your rowing goals. But if not, that's no worries. We'll keep these videos coming. Okay, bye everybody. Like and subscribe.